I am a man of my word. Behold, the final painting.
This painting...
It is the angel descended from the heavens during my final battle against Juliana.
An angel?
When we last did battle 1800 years ago, the battle raged 100 days. The mountains of Norende rent asunder. Knowing the battle was reaching its end, I mustered the last of my strength to cast my greatest of spells. As my final attack surged forth, the angel did descend from the skies over Norende.
Are you sure it was an angel?
Verily so, for there are no other words to describe her. For a moment, Juliana and I stood captivated. Before we realized it, our struggle was forgotten. We both tended to the angel. But the angel lost her light. Her wings were shattered and her body torn asunder. There seemed little hope she would live. When she came to her senses, she trembled with fear. Yet with little remaining strength in her body, she made unto us an appeal.
What appeal? What did the angel say to you?
Here, she passed from this world. She slipped in and out of consciousness over many a day. In between ever-growing periods of unconsciousness, it was all she could do to mutter incoherently. A trap most vile, such a fool am I, the warriors of light, if it's not too late. These she would repeat over and over. When she did come to her senses, she would speak of the calamity that had befallen her. She spoke of how Luxendark was on the brink of doom, and spoke with precision of the events that has heralded its coming. She herself was surprised to find that she knew of details of our past, and events of the future as well. The struggle between the old faith and orthodoxy, the tragedy that would befall my family, my immortality, even events of the distant future.
Distant future?
Yes, for the angel spoke of events that have not come to pass even now. Events that await you in your future. She told of a bringer of evil who would appear in the guise of one friendly to the Vestals and seduce them into unleashing chaos in the name of awakening the crystals. This evil one would destroy Luxendark by piercing the boundary that protects this world, and the opening of a great rift that sunders the earth shall herald its coming.
The Great Chasm!
The angel told of many other omens here the Great Chasm would open. The light of earth shall raise up the north, and a deathly plague shall cover all the lands. Then shall a great rift rend the earth. She then entrusted me with a certain task, one that only an immortal such as I could fulfill.
What sort of task could only an immortal fulfill?
That I cannot say, for she swore me to secrecy, but thereupon she quietly passed from this world. For 3 days and 3 nights, my former mortal enemy Juliana and I spoke of what had transpired. Ultimately, we vowed to join forces to prepare for the coming doom of which the angel had foretold.
Agnes? Oh, Agnes! You're alive and well! Olivia! When I went to see you, the witch Victoria and that man Victor attacked. You tried to protect me and I thought I would never see you again. I'm overjoyed to see that you yet live. Thank you. Thank you. Olivia, promise me. Promise you'll never leave my side again.
Vestal of Water! You've nowhere to run!
That voice. Einherja!
The Wind Vestal is already dead. That leaves only you, Olivia. All hope of reviving your precious crystalism is lost. The end is plain to see.
We've sealed off any means of escape, sister. Nowhere to run.
You heard them. Now surrender at once or face the consequences.
Einherja. And both of your sisters in tow.
So, you've come, Medea. You've made it clear you intend to defy us at every turn. So be it. Prepare yourself. It's too much for you! Fall back!
Please retreat. Let Artenia go.
Ophelia, you've done enough. Withdraw.
I suppose I've no choice but retreat.
Impossible! You've grown strong, Edea.
Einherja! Are you hurt?
I'm fine.
Artemia, take over from here. No one get by.
No. We go together. I'll not lose my sisters over that philanderer's orders. I am impressed, Edea. Though we fall back now, I will settle this score someday.
Einherja.
They're gone. Are you all right? Olivia? I'm scared. So scared. Olivia! Don't you leave me, Agnes! Say you'll stay with me. It will be the two of us together from now on. We'll fulfill our appointed task together. We're friends after all. We'll be fine so long as we have each other. I need no longer be afraid.
Agnes.
Though she speaks of fulfilling the Vestal's task together, I suspect you know well enough. It is not as she imagines it. Still, it is a road you may choose, should you so wish. Agnes, this world's Vestal of Wind has passed on, but you may remain here as Agnes Oblige, friend of Olivia. What will you do? Will you choose a restful life together?
I need...
You need not answer now. At last, we come to you and your fate, 'tis. In a ruined village, there is a young lad in a daze. Go to him.
Look at this place. No one's rebuilt anything yet.
Tiz? Brother! It is you!
Till! You survived!
Tiz!
Till!
But you died! You tried to protect me, and you...
Till... I never thought I'd hear your voice again.
I've been all alone since I lost you. I tried to rebuild the village, but couldn't do it alone. Airships came after me, and I was attacked by the strangest pair.
Forgive me, Till. Forgive me for leaving you all alone.
Tiz! Behind you!
What now?
You pushed me clear as the ground collapsed. Had I just kept hold of your hand, I kept playing that moment over and over again in my mind. It's been eating me up inside.
Till...
But you're back again to save me. My big brother. My hero. Please, don't leave me ever again. We'll rebuild the village together. The king says he'll help. It might take years, but we'll have it back just the way it was.
Right. Let's do that.
Tiz.
Your counterpart in this world perished saving his younger brother. If you wished to stay and live here, there is now a place for you. A place where you fit in. And perhaps your brother will finally be free of the terrible memory that haunts him. A specter you yourself are all too familiar with, I'm sure.
I wish...
Your decision needn't be a rash one. Speak amongst your comrades before you decide. I will await you in Juliana Woods. Come see me when your decision is made.
It is not for me to remain as Vestal here in this world.
That's right. You're the Vestal of Wind, Agnes. You can't end your journey here.
And Olivia? You'd be condemning her to the same loneliness and dread you felt in the first world.
The same could be said for you, Tiz. Do you intend to leave your brother all alone?
Well, even if you two don't stay, I think Edea should remain here with her mother and father.
What about you, Ring-a-Bell? You'd lost your memory for such a long time. Now you finally have somewhere to go. People who love you. I can't stay here by myself.
I'll go wherever you do, Agnes.
Though the world may change, you never do. Not once, since that moment on the brink of the Great Chasm.
We battled the Sky Knights together. Then we weathered the burning of Kaldisla.
I asked you to take me with you. Then we met, Edea.
We stole the Echelot and awakened the Wind Crystal in Ansheim.
Then to Florum and the Sacred Flower Festival. We lost Olivia, but awakened the Water Crystal.
We worked together to save Egil and Eisenberg. Remember how Agnes's face got all covered in soot?
I hardly see how that detail is relevant now.
But it was hilarious. And then there were all the fights before then, too.
We have our answer then?
Yes.
Seems so.
All right then. Let's go see the sage.
It would seem you've made a decision, a unanimous one by the look on your faces. Need I remind you, you've been given a chance to live the rest of your lives among those you hold dear.
We know. And those people are right here beside us.
That the four of us met is a fate we all hold dear.
That's right. And that's why we'll go on.
Right, the four of us together.
Well spoken indeed. Now, last but not least, let us assess your growth so far.
Wait, you don't mean...
That is just what I mean. A job. a legend born 1,800 years past. The conjurer Juliana stands before you.
This has only begun!
great power. You have grown strong in such a short time, Agnes.
And you, Sage, you're quite formidable for a man of your age.
Yes, well, 1900 years is a rather long span. Now, I must ask, what shall we do about the memories of those you encountered in the ordeals I prepared? I can leave them with the memories of your meeting intact, or I can wipe them from their minds.
I would ask that you leave them intact then. Even chance meetings over in a moment can provide a spark to keep a person going.
I leave it to time to claim what memories it will. That works for you too?
Fine by me.
Very well, then. It shall be as you wish. Now, it's near time we parted ways. I leave the fate of the world in your hands.
Sage!
Do not look so sad, child. I simply go to see to a little meeting I've avoided overlong. Truly overlong. Now, farewell.
This crystal has also reverted.
Wait, something lurks nearby.
Another creature back from destruction.
Here they come!
awaken the crystal before we are beset by more beasts! Of course. I'm ready, Eri. I'm sure you have the hang of it, but if there's anything you'd like to go over again, just ask. Time to get started, Agnes. Are you ready?
Yes. Let us begin.
You did it! You awakened the crystal! That's all 4 of them now!
What is this light? The holy pillar?
It must be! Let us head there again, Agnes! This time, we must ensure we seal the Great Chasm and cleanse evil from the world!
Yes, I know. We cannot fail again.
Three times now we've seen this light.
I don't feel the warmth I did the first time.
I feel nothing at all. Nothing save a stabbing pain all over.
Where are Dats and Zats?
I had them take refuge in the hold. Okay, everyone. Don't forget to watch over me. This is going to work this time. You'll see.
Yes, of course.
Wait. Are we...
Are we really sure about this? Oh, wondrous and beautiful first light! My brooch awaits your divine radiance!
Ring a bell. Ring a bell! Why?
Let's keep watch.
What?
We should watch over Aerie.
Right. Alternus Dim shouldn't appear in this world. But let's not let our guard down.
Forgive me, Tiz. It's my fault. Because of me and the Holy Pillar, your village, time and time again.
We do this to vanquish our foe. Our true enemy. The source of the great darkness.
How much longer must we suffer this sadness?
Just a little longer, until that pattern heralds the beginning.
For now, we'll grit our teeth and bear it. Together. Until it's done.
And beyond that, we'll make amends together still.
For now, we'll join Agnes on whatever path she believes in.